know, when I got out of the Army, I dealt with a lot of PTSD and a lot of depression. And some days it was just a struggle to get out of bed. Until one day I discovered knife making. And knife making enabled me to really focus in on something, distract my mind, gave me a sense of purpose, and something that I could share with tons of other people. And in doing so, gave me a new sense of purpose. And I'd like to share that with you now. So I'm Patrick. This is on the Bearded Bastard Outdoors channel. However, my knife making is actually Migizi knives. Migizi, M-I-G-I-Z-I. It is Ojibwe for eagle. And the reason that's important is because it's from my heritage. So by making these knives, it's almost like me connecting with my heritage, connecting with some sort of skill that my ancestors might have had, and all that heritage gets forged into every single knife. And so people have asked me, how do you make a knife? So I'm going to make this series on making your first knife. So stay tuned and let's get done with part one, just the general forging of the knife.
Oh yeah, 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 oh yeah, yeah.
So while the steel's heating up, let's go ahead and talk about hammers real quick. My primary hammer right here is my straight peen hammer. And why do I like this hammer so much? Well, I have my face that I can hit, and then I have my straight peen where I can stretch out my steel. Okay, and that becomes very important when I want to in, out, and stretch it out. I don't have to swap hammers, I just have to swap sides. Okay. Another option, depending on what I'm dealing with, is I have my mini sledge right here. And this one, I have my mini sledge right here, and this one is just one I got at Lowe's. Not sure how much weight it is, but same thing. I have a lot of thick steel that I need to flatten down. This has more weight, some more power, and then again, I have a cross piece that I can stretch it out with. So that's another option if I'm trying to flatten out round bars or something. I have my rounding face hammer, where it has the rounding face. This will come into play with this knife when I'm trying to set my bevels. Okay, that round face displaces the steel a lot more efficiently than a flat-faced hammer. But this one also has a flat face and a round face. It just depends on what I need. I can just swap either. The next one I have is I have a flattening hammer. Oh, Blacksmithing. Oh, there it is. It's my flattening hammer. So when I want to get rid of imperfections in my steel, I just place this on here or on my steel and just whack it, and it evenly distributes the force to flatten out imperfections or high spots in my blade or my steel. Okay, so those are the hammers that I'll be using today. Now let's talk about the sequence real quick. On my bar stock here, what I want to do is on my corner right here is I actually want to hit into my corner to push this corner back into the steel to essentially create a 45-degree angle right here. So I create that 45-degree angle to set my blade, with my cutting edge being flat and my spine at this time being at a 45-degree angle. Some things that I want to consider is I don't want to hit straight down and actually pinch these two corners together, because what I get are cold shuts, which are weak points in the knife. So I have to be cognizant of that. I also don't just want to bash along the spine here, because then I can also create cold shuts by the material folding over onto itself. So we'll get this heated back up, and I shall show you what I'm talking about. Clean off your handful so you don't get impurities knocked into your steel. But see how it's starting to curl here. The point here and the point here, that's what we want to avoid, is those fish lips coming too close together. Okay? So an easy way to fix that is to just hit it back into the steel. Okay. So I'm holding it, I'm going to hold it on the edge of my anvil here, and when I strike, I'm going to strike it so it pushes that material back into the metal instead of pinching it together. Get it hot again. So basically, that's step one. All right, is setting that angle right there. Okay, from right here, we just clean it up. All right, and then the next thing that everyone's process is a little different, but what I like to do now is on the spine here, is I like to create my taper. Okay, taper it down to a point. So that's where my straight beam comes in hand, because I'll use it to really just draw that out so it makes a nice point before I set my heel and everything and shoulders. I like to spread that out to taper. So we'll get on that. Now, hopefully you should be able to see it. I've taken the material and I've stretched it and tapered it to the point. Just enough. I left about maybe 1/8 of an inch right there. So I don't make it too thin, because the thinner it is, the more chances of warping I find. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to assess where to put my heels and my shoulders. And the knife that I'm making is an Eastern Long Hunter knife for a raffle to support a veteran organization. And so I want the knife blade to be pretty long, actually. Overall length is going to be about 12 inches from the tip of handle to the tip of the knife. And so what I'm going to end up probably doing is placing the heel about here-ish, about 5 inches. And that'll stretch it probably to 6.5 inches this way, and then I'll be able to work on the handle. So I'm going to go ahead and place it about right there. So this is where I'm going to use my rounding hammer. Remember, the one with the rounded face right here, to help spread that material out efficiently. I'm also going to tilt the blade up about 20-ish degrees for my mark. I'm just going to start striking straight down. Alright, that's my heel. And so what I'm going to do then is I'm going to do the same thing all throughout the end, or the cutting edge right there. And what's going to happen is this tip's going to end up curling up. Okay, but I'll worry about that later, and you'll see what I mean. And we'll get all this cleaned up in the process. This is where we're at so far. Okay, so we're getting there. And one thing I want to add, a lot of people who are new will do is they're just going to try to mash the crap out of it as fast as they can. Let the anvil do the work for you. Take a lot of that pressure off. Save yourself some good old tennis elbow. I got some bad tennis elbow from just mashing the crap out of this stuff. Until you learn how to be efficient with it, just let the anvil help you out. All right? so I have the general shape that I want. I have my shoulder here. So on the next pass, I'm gonna lock it in and I'm gonna push the material up and back to create my ricasso shoulder, or whatever you wanna call it. All right. Another reason why I like the straight feed. I'm just going to do the same thing I just did. Come in about right here. There. And right across from there again. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the angle grinder and just cut to this point off, to that point. Just like so. And then we'll taper this down to a point. All right. Everything's generally cleaned up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and use that flattening hammer to level out all the imperfections. Now, if you don't have one of these flattening hammers, that's fine. I either don't worry about it. You can use an angle grinder, or I've even used a scrap piece of steel, laid it on top of it, and just bashed the hell out of it. Just something with a flat surface, really. I mean, in a nutshell, that's about it. So remember, the process was to create your point here. The cutting edge is flat and your spine has that 45-ish degree angle. I drew it out to a point along the spine, created the heel, and created my bevels, made my ricasso, and then made my shoulders for my tang. So for this specific knife, I've already got my piece of antler picked out. I'll have to play around with it. But the next steps in part 2 is going to be cleaning up the profile and actually making it look like a knife. And then what I like to do is make my guard and set the handle, dry fit it, before I do any heat treating or anything of that sort. Again, that's my process. Somebody might dispute that, but that's my process. So then by the time this is heat treated, I clean it up, I just put it together and I'm done. But anyways, that's part 1, the general forging of the knife. Part 2 will be the actual cleanup, because we got to let this cool off. It's really hot. We'll be cleaning up the profile and making the guard and getting that antler dry fitted. So stay tuned. And make sure you subscribe so that you catch part 2. We'll see you later, alligator.
Oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah, yeah.